Tokyo, March 31st, 2026. On an old DOCOMO handset, one button still carries the name iMode. Press it now, and the private mobile world behind it is gone. That day, NTT DOCOMO shut down FOMA, its third-generation network, and the last iMode services went with it. For 27 years, that button had opened mail, news, weather, banking, games, tickets, and paid digital content. So what exactly ended? A Japanese detour? An early smartphone? Or a different way to build the mobile internet? To answer that, the button has to work again. Rewind to February 22nd, 1999. The web existed, but carrying it around usually meant a laptop and a modem. Mobile phones made calls and sent short messages. DOCOMO launched something different. Press one button and reach useful network services immediately. It was not the desktop web squeezed into a tiny screen. It was a mobile system designed around the limits of the phone. Those limits were severe. The launch network moved data at 9,600 bits per second. Displays were small. Memory and processing power were meager. The obvious response was to wait for better hardware. DOCOMO did not wait. Its engineers and service planners simplified the page language, network path, menu, billing, and relationship with publishers together. Constraint was not an inconvenience around the product. It was the design brief. That coordination was the invention. A compatible handset connected through a packet network and gateway. Services used compact HTML, derived from language familiar to web developers. An official menu let users find services without memorizing addresses. Paid content appeared on the phone bill. None of those parts alone was science fiction. The achievement was making them behave like one product, before the mobile industry had agreed on what that product should be. The network also changed what users paid for. Earlier, mobile data could feel like a meter running while a connection remained open. iMode charged for data transferred rather than simply for elapsed connection time. A user could open a menu, read a short page, and pause without imagining coins escaping through the speaker. At 9.6 kilobits per second, this was not speed. It was predictability engineered tightly enough to make frequent interactions practical. The official menu gave the service a front door. Weather, banking, travel, and entertainment providers sat inside a directory maintained by the carrier. That made discovery easier and attached DOCOMO's reputation to what users found. But iMode was not only a sealed list. Compatible general sites remained reachable. By 2001, DOCOMO's technical journal described more than 1,000 official sites and more than 30,000 general sites. Curated and open access existed side by side. For publishers, the phone bill solved another problem. Collecting a few hundred yen from millions of users was difficult when each service needed its own account and payment system. DOCOMO could collect the fee with the subscriber's bill and pass proceeds to the provider after a collection charge. The primary record establishes that mechanism, not the fixed percentage often repeated later. Small digital purchases became administratively ordinary. This created a flywheel. Handsets gave publishers an audience. Useful services sold handsets. The menu made services visible, and carrier billing turned attention into revenue. In June 2004, a DOCOMO release described more than 43 million subscribers and 80,000 content sites across 9 countries. Its agreement with Telstra marked a 9th overseas partnership. This was no laboratory curiosity. It was a mass-market platform with an export program. Its cultural reach extended beyond menus and bills. In 1999, Shigetaka Kurita designed 176 symbols for iMode, each constrained to a 12 by 12 pixel grid. They compressed weather, transport, food, mood, and social signals into space a tiny screen could afford. The Museum of Modern Art later acquired the original set. On iMode, emoji were a practical answer to 12 pixels and users who still had things to say. Handsets improved quickly. Color displays, richer graphics, Java applications, cameras, and third-generation FOMA devices expanded what the service could carry. Yet the experience remained recognizably iMode. phone, dedicated entry point, carrier-managed service layer, and ecosystem shaped around Japanese networks. The hardware changed faster than the organizing principle. Services worked because manufacturers, the carrier, and publishers were building toward the same target. By July 2010, iMode stood near its domestic high water mark at roughly 49 million contracts. DOCOMO later reported more than 80 million cumulative subscriptions. However it is classified now, this was no eccentric test. For more than a decade, tens of millions of people used a carrier-organized mobile internet at national scale. That made the export question sharper. If the system worked here, why was it so difficult to reproduce elsewhere? DOCOMO carried that success abroad through licensing and operator partnerships. Germany, the Netherlands, Taiwan, Belgium, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, Australia, and other markets adopted versions of the service. By 2007, DOCOMO described an iMode alliance spanning 18 operators. The map looked like evidence that Japan's model would become global. But the name traveled more easily than the conditions that made the original system coherent. In Japan, DOCOMO influenced the stack. Handset specifications, network behavior, menu, billing, promotion, and publisher relationships. Overseas partners inherited existing handset markets, commercial habits, pricing, and priorities. A licensed portal could reproduce the logo and parts of the service without reproducing that alignment. Foreign users were not mysteriously unable to appreciate mobile data. A coordinated system had been exported as components. The evidence differs by operator, so there is no honest single-cause obituary. In Britain, O2 said in 2007 that a limited range of iMode handsets had restricted growth, and it stopped adding new models. Other European services closed on their own schedules. Device supply, pricing, local content, competition, and better open web phones varied by market. The retreat exposed the weakness inside iMode's domestic strength. It worked best when one institution kept many pieces moving together. The overseas retreat did not settle whether iMode was a failed export or a system that could only live inside its original arrangement. It left a cleaner test. What happened when Japan itself received a rival architecture? One that moved the handset, software platform, app store, and developer relationship away from the carrier. The answer arrived in 2008, wearing a touchscreen. Then the phone changed category. The iPhone arrived in Japan in 2008 through SoftBank, followed by capable Android devices. These were general-purpose computers with touch interfaces, full browsers, applications, and software platforms controlled by Apple and Google. Discovery moved from a carrier menu to app stores and search. Developers could address international markets through common operating systems. Coordination moved from the network operator to the software platform. DOCOMO's numbers show migration, not a single execution. In its fiscal 2011 second quarter presentation, iMode subscriptions fell from about 48.9 million to 46.2 million across the compared periods. Meanwhile, subscriptions to SP Mode, DOCOMO's smartphone service, rose from about 270,000 to more than 5.3 million. Customers were not abandoning mobile services. They were moving to a layer organized around smartphones rather than dedicated carrier handsets. DOCOMO began selling the iPhone in September 2013. That date is often treated as surrender, but the structural change was already visible. Smartphone hardware, operating systems, app stores, and developer tools had created an ecosystem that did not require each carrier to design the entire customer path. DOCOMO still provided network and services, but it no longer defined the handset's basic software world. The center of gravity sat elsewhere. Old platforms rarely vanish when the verdict becomes obvious. They shrink into customer routines and wait for infrastructure to retire. DOCOMO stopped accepting new iMode subscriptions on September 30th, 2019. Existing service continued alongside FOMA while users migrated to newer phones and networks. The shutdown, announced for March 31, 2026, was not a sudden collapse. It was the final scheduled step in a transition lasting well over a decade. By the time the shutdown arrived, the evidence pointed somewhere more specific than victory or failure. iMode made a constrained phone useful by coordinating the gateway, menu, billing, handset requirements, and publishers around it. That arrangement scaled in Japan, resisted transplantation abroad, and lost authority when Apple and Google offered developers and users a wider software world. Yet the demand iMode exposed did not retreat with the carrier portal. People wanted mail, weather, tickets, banking, games, expression, and small payments from a device in a pocket. Modern phones provide those things through different owners and technical layers. iMode was not an early smartphone. It was an earlier answer to the same human request. The old handset makes the distinction visible. Its screen is small. Its software world was chosen in advance. Its most important feature is a physical button whose usefulness depended on a carrier keeping an entire system aligned behind it. On March 31st, 2026, that alignment disappeared. The button stopped leading anywhere. Mail, tickets, banking, games, and payment did not disappear. They had moved to platforms whose center sat somewhere else. DOCOMO built a front door and held it open for 27 years. When it finally closed, the mobile world no longer needed that particular door.